අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Friday the 16th of June 2023. Exchange rate benefits. Prices of 60 categories of NMRA registered drugs to reduce with effect from June 26th. Pharmaceutical Chamber urges government to introduce pricing mechanism. New avenues. Sri Lanka expresses readiness to build a nuclear power plant with Russian assistance, but experts highlight need for new laws. Liberalizing trade. ASEAN discusses Sri Lanka's interest in acceding to the RCEP agreement. Quality of education. President Ranil Wickremesinghe reiterates government's commitment to establish modern education systems.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුමකට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟම ඇති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana First at 9. I'm AdaDerana joining you live with the latest developments in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now in your top story tonight, ASEAN has hinted at the possibility of Sri Lanka joining the world's largest trade deal, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Addressing the Nikkei Forum, Future of Asia, held in Japan recently, President Ranil Wickremesinghe stated that Sri Lanka will apply for membership to the RCEP with the aim of achieving a higher level of economic liberalization. A Sri Lankan presidential delegation led by President's senior economic advisor Dr. R.H.S. Samaratunga met with the ASEAN Secretary General Kao Kim Hoon in Jakarta on Wednesday. Issuing a statement, ASEAN stated that discussions were held on Sri Lanka's economic reform agenda. It further read that Sri Lanka's possible interest in acceding to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement in the future was also brought into attention. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP is the first free trade agreement among the largest economies in Asia, including China, Indonesia, Japan and South Korea. The treaty encompasses 15 Asia-Pacific nations, representing nearly a third of the world's gross domestic product, making it the largest trade bloc in history. Backed by China, RCEP was envisaged as a way to bolster trading ties among nations across Asia-Pacific and promote trade and economic growth in the region. The RCEP was introduced during the 19th ASEAN meeting held in November 2011, and the RCEP negotiations were kick-started during the 21st ASEAN Summit in Cambodia in November 2012. The treaty was formally signed on the 15th of November in 2020 at the virtual ASEAN Summit hosted by Vietnam. For the first 10 ratifying countries, the Trade Pact took effect on the 1st of January in 2022. Trade in goods and services, investment, intellectual property, dispute settlement, e-commerce, small and medium enterprises, and economic cooperation and other issues were covered by the RCEP. Now, the prices of drugs belonging to 60 categories have been reduced by 16% with effect from the 26th of June.
A gazette was published by the Minister of Health, Keheli Rambukwalla, reducing the prices of drugs under 60 categories that are registered with the National Medicines Regulatory Authority by 16%. According to the gazette notification, a manufacturer or importer who sells any scheduled medicine shall not sell such medicine at a price more than the maximum retail price. Further, a manufacturer or importer who sells any scheduled medicine at a revised retail price, which is less than the maximum retail price, shall reduce prices proportionately by 16%. The Gazette further noted that every trader, distributor, pharmacist, medical practitioner, dentist, veterinary surgeon, medical institution including a private medical institution, pharmacy or person who or which is in possession of scheduled medicine for the purposes of sale shall maintain the price of the drugs at the maximum retail price or revised retail price, whichever is less. Accordingly, prices of drugs falling under 60 categories including paracetamol and thyroxine will be reduced with effect from the 26th of June.
Meanwhile, President Ranil Wickremesinghe today emphasized the government's commitment to establishing an education system targeting beyond the year 2050. Addressing the national ceremony for awarding teacher appointments, the head of state also highlighted the responsibility of teachers in preparing the nation's future workforce and noted that they should be equipped to embrace the advancements in technology.
The national ceremony for awarding teacher appointments to national education diploma holders for the academic years of 2018 to 2022 took place at the Temple Trees this morning under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Accordingly, 1,729 teacher appointments for national schools and 626 appointments for the Western Province were made during the ceremony. Similar appointments were also made to the other 8 provinces, resulting in a total of 7,342 national education diploma holders receiving appointments today. Addressing the event, President Ranil Wickremesinghe highlighted the teachers' responsibility in preparing the future workforce and stressed on the need to develop the export economy and make necessary changes to the education system.
තාමත් අපිට තියෙන්නේ 20 වෙනි සතවර්ෂයේ අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමය. දැන් ඒක 21 වෙනි සතවර්ෂයට ගේන්න තමයි අද අපි ආණ්ඩුවක් හැටියට ක්‍රියා කරගෙන යන්නේ. අලුත් අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයක් 21 වෙනි සතවර්ෂයේ අදට විතරක් නෙමෙයි 2050ට තරම් සුදුසු අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයක් ඇති කරන්න තියෙනවා. ආර්ථිකය ගොඩ ගන්නවා වාගේ රට ඉදිරි අනාගතයක් ඇති කරන්න නම් මේ රටේ අපනයන ආර්ථිකයකට සුදුසු අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයක් ලබා දෙන්න තියෙනවා. අපේ ආර්ථිකය අපිට තියෙන එකම සම්පතයි. ඒ මිනිස් සම්පත. ඒ මිනිස් සම්පත වර්ධනය කරන්නේ ගුරුවරු. ඉතින් අපි පළමුවෙන්ම ගුරු සම්පතත් ඒ වගේම දියුණු කරන්න තියෙනවා. හැම දරුවෙකුටම අවුරුදු 13ක අධ්‍යාපනයක් ලබා දෙන්න තියෙනවා. අවුරුදු 13ක අධ්‍යාපනය ලැබනවා නම් සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විභාගේ මේ විදියට සමත් අසමත් විභාගයක් හැටියට කරන්න උවමනාද කියන ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙනවා. සමහරු කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විභාගයක් වුමනා නැහැ කියලා. ඒකට උදාහරණයක් ඇටියට දෙන්නේ ඇමරිකාව. ලෝකේ දියුණුම රට. සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විභාගියුත් නැහැ, උසස් පෙළ විභාගියුත් නැහැ. ඒ හොඳම කණ්ඩායම මෙතනින් එනවා. මං හිතන්නේ අපිට ඒක කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියලා. ඒත් අපි මේ සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විභාගය ගැන අපිට තීරණයක් අට ගන්න තියෙනවා. මීට වඩා වෙනස් අතකින් ගේනවද? නැත්නම් සමත් අසමත් වීම නැතුව තියනවද කියන එක. අපිට ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාව ඕමනයි. අපි ඉංග්‍රීසිත් අපේ ජාතික භාෂාවක් හැටියට අපිට යොදවන්න පුළුවන්. තව අවුරුදු 15කින් 20කින් පන්ති කාමරේ කුමක්ද කියලා අපි කාටවත් කියන්න බැරි වෙනවා. chat GPT නිසා සම්පූර්ණ අධ්‍යාපන ඉගෙනීමේ ක්‍රම වෙනස් වෙනවද? අපි ඉන්නේ විශාල පරිවර්තන යුගයක. විශාල විපර්යාසයක් සමාජයටත් ඒ වගේම අධ්‍යාපනයටත් සිදු වෙන්න යනවා. ඒකට ඔබ සූදානම් වෙලා ඉන්න කියලා මම කියන්න කැමතියි.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies established an extraordinary gazette declaring the closure of liquidation of 2 state departments on Tuesday. Accordingly, the gazette notification confirms the closure of liquidation of the Internal Trade Department and the Department of Telecommunication. The Internal Trade Department was established under the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act and was repealed by the Consumer Affairs Authority Act with the establishment of the Consumer Affairs Authority. Meanwhile, the Department of Telecommunication was converted into a corporation established by the Incorporation Order made under Section 2 of the State Industrial Corporation Act and published in the Extraordinary Gazette number 596/11 of the 6th of February. Meanwhile, a mother and a daughter were killed in a car accident in Vaunia after being run over by a tipper this morning. In another incident in Dompe, a fatal collision involving a bus and a lorry claimed the lives of 2 individuals. With that, here's a look into the developments around the country in brief.
Vaunia Manor Main Road this morning after being run over by a tipper while waiting for a bus. The 36-year-old mother and 6-year-old daughter were reported dead at the scene of the accident. A tense situation had erupted when residents in the area captured the 2 individuals who were inside the tipper and handed them over to the police. Meanwhile, a fatal collision involving a bus transporting naval personnel and a lorry claimed the lives of 2 individuals in the area of Dompe this morning. According to reports, the deceased individuals had been travelling in the lorry. Meanwhile, a woman was reported dead in a shooting incident in Madaragiriya last night. The 36-year-old was shot by an unidentified individual near her residence in Mirishena. She succumbed to his injuries while being treated at the Madaragiriya base hospital. Police suspect the suspect opened fire at the victim over a personal dispute.
Meanwhile, the president of the Sri Lanka Chamber of Pharmaceutical Industry, Sanjeeva Wijesekara, called on the government to introduce a pricing mechanism for the regulation of drug prices.
With regard to the recent reduction of 16% on pharmaceutical prices, we are indeed happy for the benefit that have been given to the ailing patients. Had it been the case that if there was a pricing mechanism in advance, the benefit would have been given to the patients much earlier, because our only concern is that the pharmaceuticals are the only item which has been price controlled without a proper mechanism. So all other industries which have been price controlled has a mechanism in place. So we believe that in time to come, we have been discussing about this matter for a very long period of time with the subject ministers, but unfortunately nothing has come through. So we believe that very soon a pricing mechanism would be in place, factoring all other than the exchange parity, because pharmaceutical industry is a heavily energy dependent industry. So we believe that all those big ticket items will be factored in and a proper mechanism would be in place. The energy, the electricity and the diesel prices should be taken into account, and also prevailing interest rates and the inflation rate. We would be more than happy to give the benefit when the time is opportune.
Join us on the other side of this short commercial break for more news.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි. ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
අබාන්ස් මිඩ්ඩිය මැඩ්නස් සේල් 50% දක්වා වට්ටම් සමග මාස 24ක් දක්වා පොලි රහිතව ජුනි 20 වනදා දක්වා පමණයි.
ඒ ත්‍රිත්වයේ තහවුරු කළ විශිෂ්ටත්වය දුෂ්‍යන්ත මහබදුගේ චරිත දිසානායක සමිතරත් නායක සිසිජී නුගේගොඩ ගම්පහ.
Physics නිලන්ත ජයසූරිය නවපන්ති ආරම්භය සුසිපුවන් ගම්පහ සීලින් බෙන් නුගේගොඩ සයන්ස් සෙන්ටර් ගාල්ල.
පහනුවර කුරුණෑගල කෑගල්ල අංකකේ භෞතික විද්‍යා පාඨමාලාව නුගේගොඩද අතික්‍රමණය කළ වගයි. ෆිසික්ස් දර්ශන ඔකුවෙල.
තනිව යන ගමනට නිවැරදි ගිණුම් කරන මග හේමාල් පෙරේරා.
Now, Sri Lanka has expressed readiness to construct a nuclear power plant with the support of Russia. Speaking to AdaDerana, chairman of the Atomic Energy Board said that this will be a full package where Rostom will also assist in training specialists who will work at the nuclear power plants. He also said that Rostom is eagerly waiting to partner with Sri Lanka.
Earlier this year, the Russian government announced its willingness to enter into an agreement to build a nuclear power plant in Sri Lanka. This was also revealed by Russian ambassador to Sri Lanka, Levan Jagaryan, during a conversation at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24 in February this year. Meanwhile, last month, during a meeting of the Sectoral Oversight Committee on Energy and Transport, it was revealed that Sri Lanka is expecting to construct its first nuclear power plant by 2032 with the support of Russia. Meanwhile, during an event held on the sidelines of St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Rosatom Director General Alexei Likachev said Myanmar, Kyrgyzstan and Sri Lanka intend to legally formalize projects in 2023 with Rosatom for the construction of nuclear power plants.
Myanmar, Kyrgyzstan and Sri Lanka intend to legally formalize projects in 2023 with Russian state nuclear agency Rosatom for the construction of nuclear power plants of various capacities.
Myanmar, Kyrgyzia, Sri Lanka хотят выходить в этом году на юридически.
In this backdrop, the ambassador of Sri Lanka to the Russian Federation, Professor Janita Aliyanike, said the nuclear power plant project was approved by Sri Lankan authorities and is now being studied by International Atomic Energy Agency specialists.
There is a proposal and there is a approval to follow the procedures from Sri Lankan cabinet, and also International Atomic Energy Agency is also now working on it, and they have set up certain groups, working groups, and Rosatom has initiated or Rosatom has set up 4 working groups in 4 different areas. Yes, we have to go to it, and we will go for the nuclear power plant.
Meanwhile, speaking to AdaDerana, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Atomic Energy Board, Professor Sardi Rosa, stated that this will be a full package, where Rosatom will also assist in training specialists who will work at the nuclear power plants. However, he also noted that they are yet to hear from the Foreign Ministry regarding the agreement, while highlighting that the government should take necessary decisions on the matter.
රුසියාව තමයි අද වෙනකොට ප්‍රධාන පෙළේ න්‍යෂ්ටික බලාගාර හදන්න ප්‍රමුඛ තත්ත්වය වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒත් රුසියාව මේ වෙනකොට මුළු ලෝකෙම බලාගාර 33ක් හදනවා. අපිට ඕන විදිහට ඒගොල්ලෝ ගා පොඩි බලාගාර තියෙනවා. දැන් ඒතර ඊට අමතරව ඒගොල්ලෝ යෝජනා කරලා තියෙනවා මේ මුහුදේ ඉඳන් න්‍යෂ්ටික බලාගාරයක්. ඒකත් ඇත්තටම ඒක 100 මෙගාවොට් විතර. පාවෙන බලාගාරයක් ගෙනාවොත් ඒක ඒගොල්ලෝ එහෙම්ම හදලා ගේන්නේ. ඒ අතරේ අපේ නියුක්ලියර් ලෝ එක හදන්න ඕන මේ. ඒ නිසා දැන් ඒක වැඩ කටයුතු මේ දවස්වල කෙරීගෙන යනවා. අපි ඉන්දියාවත් එක්ක කතා කරා ඉන්දියන් එම්බසියත් එක්ක. ඉන්දියාව එහෙම අකමැත්තක් නැහැ. මොකද රුසියාව අපි දන්නා රුසියාවයි ඉන්දියාවයි චීනය දැන් ගොඩක් සම්බන්ධය මොනවා කිව්වත්. සමහරවිට අපි රුසියාවත් එක්ක යන්නේකට බටහිර බලවතුන් විරුද්ධ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට සමහර වෙලාවට අහයි රුසියාව විතරක්ද අපිට මේ යෝජනාවල ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න කියලා. ප්‍රංශයත් ඇත්තටම අපිට ගිවිසුමානේ කතා කරා. අපිට න්‍යෂ්ටික බලාගාරයක් දුවන්න අපිට තාම හැකියාවක් නැහැ. න්‍යෂ්ටික ඉංජිනේරවරු බිහි කරන්න ඕන. න්‍යෂ්ටික රසායන විද්‍යාඥයෝ බිහි කරන්න ඕන. එතකොට රුසියාවේ අපිට තියෙන යෝජනාවලිය මුළු පැකේජ් එකම තියෙනවා. අපෙන් ළමයි අරන් ඒගොල්ලෝ නිකන් බේදමක් නැතුව රුසියාවට ගෙනහිල්ලා ඒ වැඩ කටයුතු කරලා උපාධිත් ලබා දීලා ලංකාවට ආයෙ දැන් බංග්ලාදේශය ඒගොල්ලෝ එහෙම කරා. බංග්ලාදේශය පටන් 2010 දී. ඒතකොට මේ අද වෙනකොට 150ක් විතර රුසියාවේ ට්‍රේන් කරලා ගෙනල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලෝ ගොඩක් සැදී පැහැදී සිටිනවා ලංකාවටත් මේක සම්බන්ධ කරගන්න. මොකද ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ජාලය එතකොට තව ශක්තිමත් වෙයි. අපිට යෝජනාවලියක් ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපි විදේශ අමාත්‍යාංශයට ඒක අරලා තියෙනවා. ඒතර විදේශ අමාත්‍යාංශයෙන් තාම අපිට ඇත්තටම පිළිතුරක් හම්බෙලා නැහැ මේ රෂියන් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක පිළිබඳව. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා ඇත්තටම තාම ගිවිසුමක් අත්සන් කරලා නැහැ. ගිවිසුමානෙත් අපි රුසියාවේ රොසැටම් එක පැය 5ක සූම් මීටිමක් කරහා ඒගොල්ලෝ අපිට යෝජනා කරන බලාගාර මොනවද ඒවල තාක්ෂණික කටයුතු ඒ පිළිබඳ ලොකු විස්තරයක් කතා කරා. රජය තමයි මේ තීරණය ගන්න ඕන.
Meanwhile, the ASPI closed in red as a result of price losses in counters such as Valuable One, at National Bank and SMB Leasing, with a turnover crossing 1.8 billion rupees. Similar behavior was also witnessed in the S&P Sri Lanka 20. Crossings were witnessed in Sampath Bank, John Keel's Holdings and Expac Corrugated Cartons, accounting for 43.2% of the turnover. Mixed interest was observed in Ceylon Hospitals, Piramal Glass and Sri Lanka Telecom, whilst retail interest was noted in Blue Diamonds Jewellery Worldwide, LLC Finance and Access Engineering. Foreign participation in the market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers. During the week, the ASPI and the S&P Sri Lanka 20 gained 4.9% and 5.8% respectively, whilst recording an average daily of 2.04 billion rupees. The banking sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, with the sector index edging up by 0.08%. Capital goods sector was the second highest contributor to the market turnover, whilst the sector index decreased by 0.14%. Now let's have a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Meanwhile, oil prices steadied today on course for weekly gains as the market outlook, tightened by high Chinese demand and OPEC plus supply cuts, was balanced by an expected weakness in the global economy, with the prospect of further interest rate hikes. The European Central Bank raised interest rates to a 22-year high yesterday, while the US and UK central banks are expected to raise rate hikes in the future.
Brent crude rose 4 cents to $75.71 a barrel by 12:07 a.m. GMT, and US West Texas Intermediate crude also gained 4 cents to $70.66. The gains in oil prices come as the Bank of England plans to raise interest rates by 1/4 percentage point next week. The European Central Bank lifted rates to a 22-year high yesterday, and the US Federal Reserve signaled at least 0.5 percentage point increase by the end of the year. Rising interest rates could slow economic growth and reduce oil demand. However, both oil benchmarks were heading for a small weekly gain after declines in the past 2 weeks. Oil gained about 3% yesterday on hopes of increasing Chinese demand. China's refinery throughput rose in May to its second highest total on record, and experts expect Chinese demand to keep climbing during the second half. While Chinese demand rises, the voluntary crude output cuts implemented in May by OPEC Plus and an additional cut by Saudi Arabia in July will curb supply. Oil was also supported by a weaker dollar, which fell to a one-month low against a basket of currencies yesterday. A weaker dollar makes oil cheaper for buyers with other currencies, which can boost demand.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of AdaDerana First at 9. Do stay in touch with us on www.adaderana.lk for further developments around the clock. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.